You might have noticed that Viktor and Jace have been missing from all of the Arcane Season 2 trailers and teasers, which does make sense since they supposedly exploded. Obviously, they aren't dead and will play a critical role in the development of Season 2. And I have a theory about what will be going on with Viktor. It brings together two ideas I talked about in my analysis video, but goes a bit further and makes more sense. So, let's talk about the glorious evolution, starting off where it all began. In this scene from Season 1, we see that the Hexgates are powered by an insane amount of Hextech crystals. The first time I watched the series, I didn't really pay much attention to that. But if you think about it, when you see what just one Hextech crystal can do, this building is basically the equivalent of a nuclear bomb in the heart of Piltover. It's a magical source of unimaginable power, and this image from the trailer might be one of the most important shots they've shown us so far. I've already said that the color of the sky and the clouds surrounding the Hexgates remind me of Heimerdinger's flashback when he talks about the Rune Wars and the dangers of magic. And now this image makes it pretty obvious that in Season 2, the Hexgates will be at the center of a major event. At first, I thought maybe Echo might want to access the Hexgates to use his new Z drive in combination with the Hextech crystals powering them. By combining his device with the entire building's power, he might be able to amplify and extend the Z drive's time reversing effect and prevent all the misfortunes that happened since... I was mainly basing it on this image of Echo activating his Z drive because the sky behind him is the same color as in the Hexgates image, leading me to think that these two scenes would be connected. But what would make much more sense is that Viktor would want to access the Hexgates. That's where he had his first vision, the one that gave him the idea to create the Hexcore. And during his experiments on this new invention, he even says at one point,
"If the legends are true, mages aren't bound to single functions. It's said that the arcane speaks through them."
Which is essentially what happened to him when he had that vision. As he tried to control the Hexcore, the object evolved. At first, it absorbed Viktor's blood, then warped when he tried to use it with Shimmer, and finally, it became fully corrupted after the tragic scene where Sky got disintegrated. We ended up with a Hexcore that clearly has its own will and some degree of control over Viktor. Now, in this Season 2 trailer, we get a glimpse of these characters who are undoubtedly members of the new Glorious Evolution. In the written lore, being part of the Glorious Evolved meant replacing parts of one's body with Hextech augments. But Arcane has modified Viktor's story quite a bit. It now seems that he will use the Hexcore's magic to directly alter people's bodies. Viktor's leg isn't a grafted augment. The actual nature of his body has changed. In various trailer images, we see these corruption spheres, as I call them, which resemble the Hexcore corruption's architecture. And towards the end of the trailer, there's this image. In this vision, Runeterra has been replaced by a Hextech corruption sphere. And I think that could be the Hexcore's end goal. Viktor, controlled by his invention, will initiate the Glorious Evolution and start transforming his followers with magic. Then he'll target the Hexgates, returning to the place where he had his first vision, where the Arcane spoke through him for the first time, to awaken the Arcane.
The Arcane is waking up.
By combining his Hexcore with the thousands of crystals inside the Hexgates, he'd gain unfathomable power, allowing him to transform, or rather, evolve, the entire world. Of course, Jace would try to stop him, which explains this image. But Jace wouldn't be alone. It would make sense for all of the main characters in this series to oppose Viktor, even Ambessa, which explains the presence of arcane corruption in the background of this scene. To even further support this idea, if you look very closely at this image, you'll notice these red crystal formations on several buildings surrounding the hex gates, all that point away from the hex gates, as if some sort of arcane corruption blast has occurred. There's still a lot of information missing to explain all the details of this theory, but now you have the big picture, and maybe some additional ideas as to what will be going on with Viktor in Season 2, since they haven't shown us any real images of him yet. I'm also going to use this video to address the theory about the Hexcore and the Void. It's a theory that's been going around for a pretty long time now, and I have to admit that there are quite a few things that could suggest a connection between the Hexcore and the Void, aside from the purple equal void aspect, which I find a bit too easy and shallow. So let's go over them. First, Viktor's vision in the Hex Gates reminds us of Malzahar or Lyssandra's visions, for example, when they were contacted by the Void. Then there's the Hexcore's evolution, which takes on a nearly organic appearance, similar to Voidlings when they come to life, deforming and twisting matter. This corruption also looks a bit like very old images we have of Void corruption. Another tricky one is when Jinx is studying Jace and Viktor's work. She says,
"It's all about these runes. They form some kind of mathy, magic-y gateway to the realm of EBGBs. And this turns it on."
Of course, that's not the most academic way of talking about the Void, but it could possibly be a reference to it. The Hexcore could therefore be an extension of the Void's will in the material world, and that is why it would manipulate Viktor to use the crystals in the Hex Gates to extend its Void corruption to the entire world. Now, personally, I don't think there's any connection whatsoever to the Void in Arcane. If Riot and Fortiche wanted to introduce the Void into the Runeterra cinematic universe, I don't think they'd use Piltover and Zaun to do it. It doesn't really make sense, and they already have enough to talk about in Arcane as is. To me, the Hexcore, the corruption it causes, all of that is just improperly used magic, perhaps unbalanced by the absence of the Inspiration Rune, nothing more. But just because I don't believe in this theory doesn't mean I can't share it with you. I know that Necrit is so obsessed with this theory that he's even started calling the Hexcore the Void Core. It's up to you to decide if you find it coherent or not. For me, there's one crucial piece of information we're missing: the origin of the Hextech crystals. Were they found in Shurima or even Ishtal and then imported to Piltover? Were they mined in the depths of Zaun? Were they manufactured? Where did they come from? And how did Jace manage to get so many of them? I really hope we get an answer to that in Season 2, because it's something that's been bothering me for a very long time. So that's just about it. My next video will be about the new champions that might be introduced in Season 2. Which ones, how likely they are to be in it, and why. So subscribe if you don't want to miss it. And while you're at it, like, comment, and share this video. You know the drill. Alright, cheers, and see you next time.